Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Garden Club for Fun with Flowers, French Florals. We are so happy to have everyone here today, and so happy to have Samantha from St. John's Flower Market. Do you prefer Samantha or Sam?
You can call me whatever you want, as long as you call me.
All right, duly noted. I'd like to, in addition to welcoming everybody, ask y'all to silence your cell phones so we don't have disruptions during the event. Well, Garden Club staff here today, myself, Daniel Stark, I'm the operations manager. We also have Jill Zaroletta, who is our marketing and membership manager. I would like to thank the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund for the support that makes programs like this possible. They're a great organization. Thank you, Jill. This was supposed to work, but best laid plans often go awry. I'd also like to thank the Fun with Flowers co-chairs, Martha Collins Davis and Medea Zahir. They're both members of the board of directors of the Garden Club of Jacksonville, and we appreciate their support, as well as acknowledging our past president, Irene Woodworth, who's here in the audience today. So thank you, Irene, for supporting the event. The next Fun with Flowers program that's coming up is called Small Wonders. That features Lauren Powell of the Bread and Board. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, as you can see, these are very popular events. They do sell out. This one has both a morning and an evening program, so more opportunities to fit with your schedule, but please get your tickets, and that's going to be another great one. If you are not yet a member of the Garden Club of Jacksonville, raise your hand. Okay, good. I see some non-members. Well, it's only $30 a year. And it's a great way to support the organization. You get discounts to events, including Fun with Flowers. So if you want to come back again and save some money, get a membership. You can also save money at garden stores and the Blooms Galore and More preview party. There's lots of great elements to being a member, in addition to supporting a pretty awesome organization. Without any further ado, I'd like to give Samantha a quick introduction. She is an up-and-coming rising star in the local floral industry. She joined the St. John's Flower Market last year. She was trained by Jacksonville's best, a quick learner, I'm told, and recently was able to train with LA's finest French florist, Jean Pascal. If you have any questions during the performance, just raise your hand and we've got a microphone. We'll walk around and hand it to you so you can ask your question out loud, and everybody will be able to hear it nice and clear, including Samantha, please, so she can get you an answer. And now let's go to Samantha and get started with the program. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys for being here. Another round of applause for Danielle and Jill. Thank you guys so much, as well as the Garden Club, for making this possible for St. John's Flower Market and myself to be here. We're your friendly neighbors right down the street. We are really, really happy to do this, to be part of the community. We used to do this all the time. Lenny, Marcus's father, used to do it, and now it gets to pass down to us, and we are so excited. So I have a couple rules. We are a packed house. They're very, very simple. My first rule is, if you have a question, please ask. I will do my best to answer it. If it's a little in depth, I'll explain what I can. If you don't know it, someone else probably doesn't know it. So there is no silly question. I love answering them. Second rule is have fun. I'm not here to ruin your night. You guys paid to have fun with flowers. I want you guys to have fun with flowers. Breathe. And that's the third one. Just relax and have fun. And we're going to have a good time and learn some neat things tonight. So the first thing I really want to go over, what I always like to start with everybody, is the types of arrangements you have, because there's a lot of different ways to put a flower in a vase. And we like to focus on 3 commercially. We have what we call rounded arrangements, or you might call them roundy moundies if you're, a little silly. They're the full ball arrangements. So they go all the way down the vase to the bottom of the vase and a little underneath it. We also have what's called a crescent shape arrangement, which is what we're focusing on tonight. And that arrangement has what I like to call kind of a sunset layer. There's a layer where nothing really goes underneath it. You have some accents, but it's straight. And then you have the more artistic things. You think Korean, you think sort of avant-garde Hogarth curve. Those are more advanced. We're leaving those alone. So crescent shape is what we're focusing on today. One of the things that I get all of the time is I have somebody walk in my cooler, look at all my beautiful flowers and go, what do I do with this? There are so many colors. How do I pick colors that go in vases? How do you guys pick colors that go in vases? Help. Sam, please help me. So the first thing I want to talk about is color theory. You can spend years going to college for color theory. It's pretty complex, but there are some really simple rules that make home arrangements easy. I like to start with 3 different types. The first one is monochromatic. That's where you have one color or one variation of colors all throughout your arrangement. So I might have pink, and I'll pick a pink color, and I'll use blush, and I'll use magenta, and I'll use hot pink to make a really pretty arrangement. It tends to have a calming effect. You have a nice calm arrangement when you use monochromatic. The second is an analogous arrangement, which means that you have a chunk of your color wheel or a rainbow. So if you're thinking Roy G. Biv rainbow, it's colors that go near each other. So red, orange, yellow are on that same wavelength. They make you happy. Or blue, green, purple. That's another chunk of the color wheel that you can use. You can pick one chunk and stay there, and you're going to have sort of a fun arrangement. It'll be kind of a little exciting, but not make your eyes go crazy and give you a headache, you know? And then the third one is complementary. So with my first arrangement here, there's a couple things I wanted to actually talk about with this. Complementary colors are opposite on the color wheel, right? They're top and bottom or side to side. So if you Google a color wheel or you pull one up in a picture, you're going to have a circle that starts with red and moves all the way around until it gets back to purple. The opposite colors are your complementary colors. So purple and yellow are complementary, and blue and orange are complementary, and hot pink, red, and green are complementary. Those colors really, really excite your eyes. Your eyes really want to go to them. So when you want something exciting for a birthday or for maybe a thank you that you just want to really, really make somebody happy, complementary colors are the way to go. And what I really like about complements is you can put things you normally wouldn't put together. So I probably wouldn't use, you know, purple and orange together, but I can if I use their complements. If I use a little bit of the blue that's in the birds, or I use some yellow and purple together. One of the easiest ways to find complementary colors is nature. We make flower arrangements to bring us closer to nature, to get us as close as we possibly can, right? To bring it into our house and into our lives. The easiest way to do that is to pick a flower and look at it. So I have orange and blue and a little bit of pink and a little bit of green in this one flower. If I focus on this one flower and get different colors, I can make a whole arrangement out of that. I can take that monochromatic color scheme that I talked about and pull that color out of the flowers. So I have pink, but pink can also be blush. It doesn't have to be pink. You know, I've got orange, but I can also turn that into peach. I've got green, but I can turn that a little lighter. So you can use one flower and pull all these different colors out of it. Make sense so far? Cool. Okay. The other thing that I really like about this first arrangement that I had been requested to talk about is tropicals. You know, when you think of tropical arrangement, you think a big, grand hotel arrangement, you think a wedding arrangement, you think these big, tall, grand things, and it almost makes them inaccessible or scary. How am I going to put birds if I just don't put them in a vase by themselves? What do I do? How do I make this look good with roses or with hydrangea? Tropicals don't have to be scary. If you use those complementary colors, you can tuck them into your arrangements. You can hide them. As long as you have colors that match them, your birds are going to look just fine with whatever you choose. They look beautiful because they belong. They're happy. As long as you've got those colors that balance it out, and no flower is inaccessible, no flower is going to look scary, if that makes sense. So that's my first arrangement, and that's why I love it, because it has all those different colors. The second thing that people ask me, okay, I've got my colors down. What vase do I choose? How do I know what to put them in? I have this vase at home. I don't know what to do with it. The golden ratio is the best way to do that, to figure out what flowers you need and how big they need to be. Typically for a normal commercial arrangement that I would make, the golden ratio is very simply 1.5 to 1, meaning I need my flowers to be 1.5 times bigger than my vase. So if my vase is 6 inches tall, it needs to be 9.5. The whole thing needs to be about 15 inches. Anything shorter than that, and it looks almost not right. Your eyes go, that's not right. That's too small. It's too cheap. There's not enough in it. If I go over that, I have to put a whole lot of flowers in it to make it look good. And that's when stuff starts falling apart and you start jamming things in and it looks off. The best way to pick flowers for that is to make sure that they fit that height. It makes your eyes happy. The other option for that, the exception to that rule that we also use, is what we call the 1-to-1 ratio. So you can go 6 inches and 6 inches if you have it be doubly as wide. So you'll see arrangements that are maybe really low, but they go very wide. So you can either go up or you can go wide. The last exception to that rule is if you have a really beautiful tall vase. It's gorgeous. It's a Greek pot that your grandmother gave you, but you don't want to ruin it with too big flowers so you can't see the vase. You can flip that ratio so the vase is 1.5 and the flowers are 1. So that ratio still exists. It's just flipped on its head. And like I said, you use that when the vase is exceptional, when the vase is pretty, or you have an event where the vase needs to be this tall and things are spilling out of it. That's where you use that flipped ratio. Make sense? I know, like I said, this is all on paper, right? But that's the trick we use to make things look as good as we do. Colors and size. Those are our two big focuses. If you do those two things right, and you do the arrangement by the way I'm about to show you guys, you can put whatever you want, what makes your heart happy, and then you get to create something that you have that's yours, and you put it out and you've got it. So that's my favorite way to do things, is to kind of know why you're doing it and then just go. So questions on this before I start moving on to the next thing? Awesome. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. I was ready to. It's okay.
Microphone. Okay. With 1 to 1.5.
Yeah.
Peach roses right here. It's 6 inches for the vase. And
6 inches for the vase. And so the really easy way to do this, because I don't like trying to measure the top of my vase. And I was just talking to Marcus on the way over here, actually. Measure your vase and then multiply that by 2.5. So if my vase is 6 inches, multiply the whole thing by 2.5. It should be 15 point whatever my math is. I think it's 15. So that should be how tall the vase is, if it's 6.5 up there. So I have a ruler that I use in the shop and I just stick the ruler up. There's a little bit of wiggle room there. If it's 1.75, that still looks good to your eye. So it could even be a little taller than that and everything's gonna look fine. There's a little wiggle room.
I think you answered the question then. So from the top of the vase to the top of the flower, that's where that's
That's that
the
1.5.
piece. So okay,
Yep.
you answered that question.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's tricky to try and measure it that way. So I just do 2.5 times whatever it is. And then I know how big it is. Because otherwise I'd be ducking underneath hydrangeas going, where is it? Where's the 1.5? So it's easier to just measure the whole thing. Good. Any other questions while we got them rolling? Cool. So the way we're going to do this next part, I'm going to build the arrangement we're doing today for you. And instead of just sending you out on your own into the world, I'm going to do it step by step when we go back to do it together. So I'm going to show you guys, okay, this is the greens, and then run around to help. So the in-depth version is now, and then the quick version is going to be back there. Cool. So if there are questions on how to do things while I'm doing it, if it's longer, I'll do it back there as well. All right, so let me grab some stuff here. I'm going to move these pretty raffle vases back. Ah, thank you. That would be my dance skills. See, it pays. Everyone will be very happy. I thought I cleared it, but I did not. Okay. So today we have some flowers that we're going to be using. We have ruscus, which is my favorite green because it is, there we go. I tripped my mic off. Okay. So it's go away green is what I like to call it because your eyes don't notice it. So we have ruscus, and this is Florida ruscus or Israeli ruscus. Those are two names for it. We have Monte Cassino, which is one of my favorite filler flowers, and we'll get to the whys on that as I'm doing it. We have Solidago or goldenrod. This is a fluffier variety, but we also have the long, thinner variety at the shop. We have snapdragons, called such because they snap. And we have roses. These varieties are Orange Crush and Hot Pink. These are Cheerio roses, I believe is the name. All right. So I have a 5x6 cylinder, and you guys will get to keep that lovely 5x6 cylinder and take it home as well. It's a really good one for all kinds of different arrangements. Both of those are in 5x6s as well. That one fits the 1-to-1 ratio because it's wider, so that's hence the height difference there. But all three of these are in the same vase. There we go. My hair tried to eat the mic. Okay. So this is a 5x6, meaning it's 6 inches tall, 5 inches wide. When I start an arrangement, I do what I call the spiral technique. And what that means is my stems are going to spiral around the whole time. It does two things. One, it creates a lot of space in your vase, so you don't get stuck at the end of your arrangement trying to jam stems in, going, there's no room. Where am I going to put this? It also makes your vase really pretty on the bottom. You know, arrangements aren't just art on top, they're also art in the vase. So this gives it more room to be creative and flow. Let's flip that, kind of explain. Okay, so I start my spiral with my greens nest. This is what's going to keep my flowers relatively in place. It's going to keep them from moving too much. I try not to worry about my flowers moving until the end anyway. That's another piece of advice I will give any person designing. Leave it alone. Keep adding and leave it alone, because the more you build, the more beautiful it's going to look. There's a point in every arrangement where you go, I am not a designer. I know even for me, even at this stage, there's a point where I'm designing things sometimes where I just am not feeling it some days. And I keep building, and all of a sudden it's this stunning arrangement. And I don't know how I got there. You just keep faith and keep going, and it tends to look beautiful. I love that to my core. So that's a piece I will always give people. So when I start, I want to pull the stems that I don't need out. I also, because these stems are longer, cut my stem in half. So I have one really nice full stem, and I have one kind of skimpy stem. The skimpy stem, if I need to, I can hide in the middle to give myself more structure. You don't have to do it with every stem. You can just strip them, but it is a nice addition if you've got them that look, you know, like a 4-leaf clover almost. They're kind of nice. I can tuck those in to help give myself some structure later. So when I'm doing a spiral, and I will do this both ways because forgive me, I am a lefty. Yeah, I love my handful of lefty pride. Oh my goodness, that was amazing. I'm so happy. I'm not alone. Okay, so for this, I want to think of taking my stem, and I'm going to test out here. I always cut a little longer than I want to because it's like cutting your hair, your bangs. I know everybody's tried to give themselves bangs at some point, or trim your hair and suddenly it's to your shoulder, I mean to your neck. So here we go. There we go. I tripped. Okay. So when I am putting my stem in, I want to cut it a little bit longer to figure out where it's going to lay. Then I can look and see. This sets the tone for how wide my vase is. We talked about 1-to-1. I know how tall I want it to be. How wide do I want it to be? Because if it's really wide, I need a lot of stems to fill that width in. That's when it starts looking like that. And this is the grand version of what we're doing today. So it's got a little bit more stems and a little bit more money put into it. We're doing a simpler version, so it's going to be smaller. I don't want that many stems in my arrangement. So what I'm gonna do, cut it a little bit shorter. Now it's laying up. I can easily use what I have to fill this. This is a nice base. So to start with my spiral, I'm gonna place it toward the edge of the vase. Right now, there is no edge of the vase, so I'm gonna make an X. Yes. Yeah, I try to fill my vases as much as possible because that's gonna do two things. If I mess up and I cut my stem short, they have water. They're not going to die in 2 days because I forgot to water it because I was chasing kids or dogs. You know, it's plenty. It's got lots of room if I make a mistake. The other reason is some things drink really quickly. Hydrangeas need so much water. It's insane. So I try to fill them up to as much to the top as I can. At the shop, when you guys pick up arrangements, we have boxes for that very reason. So we can give them as much water as we possibly can. Good question, though, because I always feel like that's how much water do I use? Awesome. Anything else so far? I've talked about a lot of different things. Yeah. We have flower food that we use at the shop. Flower food is our friend. We actually did some tests at the shop because we use it so much. Now, does this really work? It genuinely does. Roses, hydrangeas, those are the more delicate stems, really like the flower food. Carnations are kind of, they don't care as much. Astros don't care as much, but the delicate stems do. Cool. Anything else I like? You can get them from us. I know I swear I'm not trying to plug. You can genuinely get them from us as well. Sometimes
The
Michael's will
question,
have
and in
them.
case anyone didn't hear, the question was, where can you get the 6x5 vases locally?
Yeah. Other than the one you're getting today, because you guys will get to keep the one that you'll have today. If you're getting them in multiples, you can order them from us. I do know that Michael sometimes has some similar. They're a little thinner, but they'll do the trick. That's another option. When in doubt, craft stores are your friend. Good question. Anything else? All right, rock on. So I'm gonna set this to the side in case I need it. I don't think I'm gonna use these two, the sad stems too much. Like this one doesn't look like it's worth much. I'm gonna rip them out and I'm just gonna kind of plug along here. So I don't really want any leaves in the water. So the high water is important, but this guy's already kind of, there's that rain we talked about. This guy's already kind of pushing his luck with the water. So I'm gonna try and make sure I cut my leaves so they're laying on the end. They're not in the water. Dirty water, bacteria, flowers don't live as long. So I made my X. I rotate my stem or my vase a quarter. So the way I put my stems in is the way I'm going to rotate my vase. So I put my stem into the right, I rotate to the right. If you're a righty, put your stem into the left, rotate it that way. You're moving it the same way you put it in. Move, rotate, move, rotate, move, rotate. So you're creating the spiral. So I like to use my shoulder as a guideline. I want to kind of go to where the end of my shoulder is as I'm putting it in the vase. It's just an easy way for me to figure out what the angle is without thinking about it and trying to measure it against where my stem is. I just slide in and I rotate. And I'm going to keep doing this through the outside for about, I've got 10 stems, so I'm going to do 5 on the outside and 5 on the inside just to keep it nice and clean. And like, as I said, I've only had 1 or 2 stems that look good enough to save. Most of them we're just going to tear apart and chop. This one looks like a saver. He's got some good ones in there. Don't be afraid to get rid of what doesn't serve you on a flower. And sometimes that hurts because sometimes you have a beautiful snapdragon or delphinium that goes down to here, but you can't put it all on that one thing. You've got to pull away what doesn't serve you so you can use the flower to its best life. So it's okay. It hurts a little to pull blooms off, but it's okay. I promise for the life of your arrangements, it's good.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're good.
The greens, kind of like all the other flowers, I think I get kind of OCD because I try to cut them about the same length, at least the greens when I start? I'm noticing you're kind of doing approximations and kind of going around, but they're all
Yes.
approximately the same.
The reason I do approximation is because nature isn't as perfect as
Sure.
I would like it to be too, because
Sure.
I am very much, okay, they all need to be 8
Yeah.
inches long to do this. But sometimes there's a bend in the leaf, or sometimes there's a leaf at, 3.5 inches up. Nature isn't quite as precise, so I'm doing it to make sure that my stems lay on the end versus where they end up.
Thank
I'm
you.
going for the overall look versus exact amounts. Question. So again, I'm going underneath the stem I just laid and going towards the end. It doesn't really so much matter as long as I'm going outside of the leaves or the stems that I put in. So I'm not trying to duck it in to go to the end of the vase. In front of me and around, and then I rotate. I can't rotate that way, so I got to keep going the same way. Otherwise, it starts crisscrossing. So I'm ripping my stems again. So now at this point, I have a little bit of a balance here, which is just fine for what we need. I want to start putting stems up here. Otherwise, my arrangement ends up being this wide, and you have nothing to hold it in up here. My goal for my greens isn't to be perfect. It's to give me a knot. It's to give me, so you have a little bit of forgiveness right here. You have a little bit of give with the spiral right now, because everything you're putting in after this is what helps. And the more stems you have, the more consistent the spiral is going to be. You're not going to have a really, really pretty, perfectly lined up vase without a good 70 stems in it. That's what keeps that really nice spiral. You'll have a nice consistent look though. It's not going to look like you knotted up a bunch of stems and jumbled them in there. It's going to look consistent and pretty. So it doesn't matter whether you have 5 stems or 500, it's going to look better and be easier to do. Does that make sense too? I just don't want everybody going, they're not equal, they're not straight. Because they will be straight, they just won't be perfect. Okay, so I'm going to quickly keep going on that now that I've got the idea down here. I'm just going to pop it in, rotate. And as I'm looking at this, I'm looking for my biggest gaps. Like I have a big gap right here and I have a big gap right here I want to cover. The rule of 3 is really important in arrangements. Nature creates things in 3s a lot of times. You'll have a stem growing and another stem growing and something else right next to it. That happens very often. Our eyes like 3s in design. They see 2 and they go, why? They're antlers or eyeballs. You don't like 2s or 1s and things unless it's something really spectacular. So even when I'm doing my greens, I'm thinking rule of 3. I have like 3 points here that I'm doing. I have 3 points that are up that I'm doing. I might even make things uneven in a group of 3 so I can fill it in later. And what I mean by that, actually I have a good example of that here. So what I mean by making something uneven and then filling it later. So there's a really good rule of 3 right here. I have 3 roses right here. I have 3 snapdragons right here. Your eyes form a really cohesive point through all of these, and I have filled it completely, but they're not even. They're not a perfect circle because nature doesn't do perfect circles other than like fairy rings, It always grows in gardeny lumps. And that's what we're trying to do here is bring that in. I want it to look like I went to my garden and scooped this up and smashed it in a vase, That's really what creates that look. Ooh, it's gonna rain on us. Carefully step back up. Okay. Does this make sense so far too? I know this is some crazy concepts going on here. It'll make a lot of sense when we're doing it. So again, I got this nice crisscrossy spiral going. As I do my second layer, I'm doing the same thing I was doing on my outside layer. I'm just doing it at a steeper angle. Instead of going around this way, I'm going towards myself like I'm scooping up dinner. I'm scooping down and in, and then I'm rotating through. And I can move it a little bit as I go, as long as it's generally in that vicinity. So I'm going straight down. And the more you do it, the better you get at guessing where you need to be. The other thing I like to do is when I start getting too many stems in one spot, I like to wiggle my stems. That's how I'm going to get them in my arrangement easy and out of my arrangement easy. If I mess up, I can wiggle my stem out without pulling everything apart. That's, I think, a huge thing when you're an indecisive person like myself. I don't know, I didn't want that rose there. Wiggle in, wiggle out. Okay. So I'm going to wiggle in, wiggle, wiggle. And I know I said leave in the water, it pushes in sometimes. Rotate. And it looks like I've got 2 of my little mini pieces. So on my back end here, I have a little bit of space. I'm just gonna fill that in with this little piece because you're not gonna see it, but it's gonna help me later when I need to put stuff in there. So I'm gonna wiggle. And your last stem, especially when you have multiple stems, you can stick straight in the middle, like directly in the middle. You don't have to, you can do it at a little bit of an angle so it's still going the same way, but it doesn't have to fight its way to the end. Cool. Oh, I had a secret bonus one. All right, so I've got my greens in. Now I've got a nest I can work from. So in a crescent shape, the second thing I want to do after I create a nest is I want a line. I want something that's going to make my eye have the shape I want it to have. So the next thing I'm going to add is my solidago. There's a couple different ways to do solidago with the thicker stems. All I'm doing is creating a literal line, a literal V with this. When you have more stems, the thinner version, if you had more, you're going to be popping it to create the line through the whole arrangement. When you have 2 or 3 to keep it easy, you're creating your literal line for your arrangement. You can use both. Either school of thought is okay. If you're using the thinner ones, you're doing the same motion that we did. You're doing that same fill throughout however many you want to do. This works with daisies. It works with, I'm trying to think, daisies is a big one. Daisies, Monty. I'm trying to think of other, baby's breath. You can do it with baby's breath as a middle layer. If you're doing rose dozens, this would be your next step would be baby's breath or your filler. Filler or dainty flowers, the flowers you use that are growing out wildflowers, those are the flowers I'm talking about when I say filler versus a line flower, a flower that gives a line. Or your focal flower, what you want your eyes to be drawn to. Those are your 3 types in your arrangement. So right now, I want to focus on my lines next. And greens are just greens. They can be an accent. Greens are mostly to be hidden and then used purposefully. So I don't, unless you want an arrangement full of greens, you want them to be hidden because your eye doesn't understand what they are. Your eye doesn't really see green. That's why Disney uses it on buildings. It's called go away green because your eye doesn't find it interesting whether you do or not. It's my favorite color, but my eye doesn't know that. So we try to use greens purposefully because too many and it feels like you didn't get your money's worth. It doesn't look like you know, I have $100 worth of flowers. Why does it look like I have 5? Probably because you have too many greens. Less is more. Cool. This back in the arrangement so it's not. All right, so for my solidago, really easy, same concept as before. This time, instead of outside, I want to think of creating a V. So I want it to go more up than out. And I'm going to wiggle very slowly in. And now that looks way too tall for me. The wiggle out is going to be trickier when you have multiple stems. And because this guy's a little bit more bushy than I would like, remember how I talked about pulling blossoms before? It's going to happen now. I'm going to clip. And when you guys get to your stations, you can also clip these, but I don't have to waste them. I can use these little bits as accents later on just to pop in where I feel like I have empty space. So we're going to keep that to the side, to the very end. Okay, now I've got a nice... And you'll see me matrixing through this where I look really far back. The reason I like to do that is when you look at an arrangement, you see it from a table side view. You see it right here. You guys don't see the top unless you're looking at the cameras in the mirror. You see the front, right? So when I'm ducking, when I'm arranging things, I want to think about looking at it from every level, not here, not here. I want it everywhere. So I'm gonna wiggle in, rotate. And then once I have my V, and you can tear, you can cut, either one works because you're going to cut them again. All right, this is about even. I don't want them to be exact, but I don't want one big fluffy piece and one other piece. Eyeball. And find my center, wiggle, wiggle. Yeah, there we go, good. Good. That way I'm not going to have antlers in the end. Antlers aren't fun. Cool. Okay. And I think this one's still giving me antlers. He's really tall. And that's the tricky part with flowers, is they're different every time. I can make the same exact arrangement again, and it's going to be completely different because every flower I use is different, right? So adapt to what you've got. This stem's different than this one. I'm going to use them to their best ability. Pretty, yeah, there we go. All right. Cool, so greens, line flowers, everything making sense so far. Rock on. I'm going to keep continuing my line to reinforce my line with some with some snapdragons. Here's my tricky secret with line flowers. They're not always going to be the showstopper in your arrangement because they're made to draw your eye. Again, in that one back there, they're not up here. They're not taller than everything else I have. They're tucked in, they're nestled. They're a little secret that you see. They're bonus. Using flowers to their best ability doesn't always mean showing them off, you know? Less is more a lot of times. I think the best way to do this is to tuck it in about halfway between your ruscus and your solidago. So I want them to be the first layer. There's 5 of them. So I want 3 of them on the outside to cover this gap here to make a line, and 2 of them where it makes my heart happy. And that is subjective, which is always tricky. What makes your eye happy? Does it need to grow like it's growing out of the arrangement? Does it need to be balanced so it's symmetrical? That's up to you. For me personally, I like to do a little bit of levels. So I want to keep this rotating because now I'm going to start, as I rotate, it's going to start pushing those uneven stems in, those stems that aren't going the right way. It's going to start pushing those in. Now I have a nice line. All right, moving on up quickly. So I've got a little wiggle, and I'm just going to look and rotate. The really nice thing about the spiral, if I notice towards the end that I have a stem that's completely wonky, I'll just put it out and fix it. There's a lot of do-overs. It's very, very, very forgiving. So I'm going to place these towards the edge of my vase. And now I'm starting to create something that's a little fun. It's got some levels. Now I got to put something in the middle. So I think these 2 are going to go right here in the middle for me. So again, with the middle, I'm going to try and scoop it up like I'm scooping up soup. I want to scoop it out from the middle and rotate through. Yeah, I'm going to look at that from all my angles. I need one right here. And it's okay to have big empty spots right now because we have filler. We have things that are going to go here. We have roses. Again, we're not done yet. The scary levels, they get filled in. Cool. Yeah. Right on track. Okay. So I want to wiggle. And now, again, I'm going to take a step back. This looks like it's going to be my front of my arrangement. In arranging, you can do 2 things. You can do 360, like that one over there, where it's pretty at any angle and it can go in the middle of a table, or you can do what we call front facing. And that means that one side is your front. Everything is geared to making this picture perfect area, and everything else is just kind of nice. You can put it in a corner, you can put it on a table. Make sense so far? Questions? Ooh.
Are there certain flowers that, when you say French flowers, are flowers that are used more that sort of favor a French flavor to
Yeah,
it?
actually. So French flowers, the French style, the European style of arranging is more of a style than the flowers itself. Like that, it's more of how you do things to make them beautiful versus what's in them. But the style is simplicity. I want 4 or 5 flowers. That's it. I don't want, and flowers that I think are really simple that favor the French style are light, dainty flowers for your light, dainty flowers for your filler. Monte Cassino is one that's really big. Chamomile is really, really big. Snapdragons are huge in French floral design. Garden roses are really big, but honestly, that's more what's trending than what it is in French design. Things come back around. I would say it's more how you're using them. That is the French part of it, but snapdragons are huge, especially in Europe right now. Everything is about wildflowers and bringing nature in versus something that's more structured or geometrical. Does that sort of make sense? That exactly. It's grabbing whatever you have with you. That cottage core is what they're calling it right now, but the aesthetic of something you would find in your garden is much more, and that depends on where you're at. That's why I was like, well, it's not really one specific flower. It's whatever you're using that's around you. So, you know, around here, we probably wouldn't be using peonies as much because you don't find them. You know, you're going to find things like zinnias and cosmos and things of that nature because that's what grows around here right now. Even marigolds sometimes if you can find them. So it's bringing nature closer to you is the French style right now currently. But if you're mimicking that style with things that maybe don't really grow around here, you're going to mimic that style with wild looking flowers like Solidago, goldenrod's a big field flower. Monte Cassino is a good field flower. Chamomile is a good field flower. And then things that are tall to make it look like they're growing. Good, cool. Any other questions? Awesome. All right. So I'm going to do this next part really quick because it doesn't take a whole lot of work or explanation. I'm just going to fill in my blank spots. That's all this is for right now, is to fill in my space so I have a nice, good base that looks pretty. I don't have a bunch of big holes where my eyes are going to go, and I have something to put the roses on. But the big, huge, important thing with white flowers, with my small stems, is bringing in space into my arrangement. There's something that a lot of people forget about, because if I'm doing a monochromatic arrangement and I have magenta and I have, or even something that's bright and colorful, I have these 2 gorgeous flowers. If I add just a tiny, tiny bit of white, now both of those flowers shine, not just one of them. A little pop of white will make your arrangement, or any real light color will really make your arrangement shine. White specifically. Phlox is a really good dainty white flower to use. Monte is a good white flower to use. Again, chamomile, if you're a really big fan of baby's breath, it's a good one if you use it sparsely. It's really pretty. You just want pops to break up that bulk of color so you don't have a blob of color. It looks more natural. So for this, I'm going to either put it in between things I think need some color to make them shine, or to fill my space. And those are my 2 objectives right now. And to keep wiggle, rotating it the same way and doing my spiral the whole time. And at some point while I'm doing this, it kind of becomes an arrangement on its own. See, now I already have a really little natural bit right here. This looks a lot more natural than it did 3 seconds ago before I had that little bit of white in there. And I hit and I rotate. And I'm clipping the end so it can drink. Your stems are just big straws. If I forget to clip them, it's not going to drink, and I'm going to be very sad in about 3 days. I try to keep my stems as long as I can. These aren't quite hitting the bottom because some of them are a little short, but the longer you can keep them, the more life you get out of them, because you can pick it up and clip it in a couple days and then you still have some life. You know, the longer you can keep your stems, the longer you can give your flower. And, you know, the happier it's going to be ratio-wise. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to wiggle down and rotate. I'm going to go. And as of right now, I see this guy is out a little bit, so I'm going to even him out with some flowers and rotate. And I'm never, ever, ever afraid to decide that I put something in the wrong space and move it later. I want to try and put where I get my shape going, and then I can fix things a little bit later when it's structured. And like right now, things will move as you add more flowers. They'll start to kind of turn a little bit. When they do, they'll shift a little, and that's okay. It's okay that they're not stick straight in your vase yet. Flower arranging is very much more an art than it is a science. I didn't know I needed a math degree though too. I didn't expect I'd be an architect when I was doing this. All right, I'm gonna pop it in and rotate, easy peasy. And as I'm doing this, I'm just continually looking at where things are. This guy sunk a little, popped him right back up. He's fine and happy now. Take a big old step back, see where he's leading. Okay, so right now I have a pretty good base. I'm pretty happy with where he is. I'm happy, he's full. I can see everything. Everything looks pretty balanced. And from the front of my arrangement, I have texture, I have lines, I have a good shape going here. So nothing's out of place for where I want it. It's not completely symmetrical, but it's also a little avant-garde and fun. That's a big thing with European design right now, is not being perfectly symmetrical or perfectly straight, or you're not going to have exact straight lines that are exactly this far apart from each other. You're going to have levels and wild looks to it, and it's going to look like something grew that way and something's fighting it. You want it to look like it's growing, not like it was placed. I don't want to look like I put something in a vase. I want to look like it grew out of my vase. Does that make sense? I mean, sometimes it'll end up a little bit more symmetrical, but it still looks like it grew that way versus me putting it here. I know that sounds so silly. It's such an abstract thing, but it's really important for this style. Okay, so the last part in this is my roses. I like to keep the guard petals on my roses until I'm ready to use them, because these guys bang up on each other all day. Even in your garden, when you're picking them out, they get hardened and kind of weathered. So I'm going to pull directly down and then pull it off. I only have a couple on these. They're pretty good. And you can leave these on for textured if you want a more wild look. If you don't want it to look perfect, you want it to look like it's been in the garden a couple days, that's perfectly okay. Style choice. My one tip for roses is cut them about 2 inches taller than you think you need to. I consistently cut them too short. Every time I try to think about it, I'm like, okay, it's going to be this tall. And I cut it to here and go, nope, that is now an outside rose. So my one piece of advice specifically for roses is they always need to be taller than you think they do. You can always cut more off. So for this one, I think it needs to be here. I'm going to cut it down here. In fact, I'm probably going to cut it down here, even though it's an edge flower, because I'm going to take a look at this guy. And when you have different colors, these guys are bigger. They're a bigger variety. So they're probably going to go in the front, maybe in the side. Roses are where you want them to be to make you happy. There's no right or wrong place to place the roses as far as where they're going. The only thing I will say is in a crescent shape, I don't want them anything down here, because that is my no space, my dead zone. I want them up at the top where they can shine, where people can see them, because they are the most, you know, not beautiful, but they're the most important flower in this arrangement. They're the one we want people to see. Everything in this arrangement is telling you to look up. So put your roses where they're going to look up. I think that's a really important thing when you're picking flowers. Pick one flower to shine. Everything else can be pretty. You can love the other flowers, but pick one flower that you want to be the flower. And that's what's going to be what's in the front of your arrangement or the side of your arrangement. Like if sunflowers are your favorite thing in the whole world, your sunflowers are going to be what you want everybody looking at. Does that make sense? I think that's where it's where I see a lot of people trip up when they come get flowers, because we have so many pretty ones. I love peonies. I love roses. I love, you know, renoncs. Even in my arrangement over here with, let me step down. Even in this arrangement where I have a lot of things competing for attention, I don't have them competing in the same place. I chose what I wanted to be my star and I put it in the front. I want my ranunculus to be my star right here. This is an arrangement that has different sides. My ranunculus is the star right here, so it's what's most forward. If I rotate it, my roses are really the star here. The birds you can see, but my roses are really the star right there because they're the first thing you see. They're the most important. Picking a focal flower, it makes it so that way you can enjoy your arrangement. It keeps it less from getting complicated. Okay, so I think Marie Kondo was the one that said, put it where it sparks joy. Does this spark joy? I want to make sure it sparks joy when I'm placing it somewhere. I don't know. I felt when we were in the pandemic, I watched a lot of Marie Kondo. I threw away way too many things. I don't have sneakers. Okay. So I'm going to put this rose right towards the edge because I have a lot of go away green right here. So I kind of want to make it look. Yeah, there we go. And now I have a nice pretty rose. I'm going to do the same thing with my other 4. I'm going to cut it longer than I think I need to. And if I was wrong, I can just trim it. Let's see. The other thing when I'm doing a spiral, I want to make sure, I noticed I wanted to put it here. I didn't just move it over here. I did the right thing, rotated it the same way and put it there. That's the big thing is consistency. Put it, rotate, put it, rotate. So place it, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And because this is my front, I want to do what I call smiley stems, which means that all of my stems are facing up. In nature, if you see something drooping, unless it's a bleeding heart, it's dying. You know, if I put these this way, it looks like my arrangement's falling out or dying. If I rotate them towards the center, everything looks like it's alive, like it's growing towards the same place. So in this case, I have a rose that has a bend to it. I want to put that bend up. So anytime you have something that curves, bells of Ireland, snapdragons, even my roses, face them up because your intent, unless you're doing something, you know, geometric. But for a standard arrangement, you just want them to go up. So I'm gonna take a step back. This snapdragon really doesn't like where he is. He really, really wants to be in the middle. All right. So now again, I'm just doing this where it makes me happy. I like the way that there's no rhyme or reason to where I have the oranges versus where I have the pink. Some of you have 3. Yes. Did I get it too close to me? Yeah, absolutely. So there's no real rhyme or reason to where I'm putting these as far as color. It's just where I think they look the best. In fact, I like the fact that these guys are touching. I think it looks neat. I think it looks more natural. So I'm just putting them where I think they'd grow. Like I think these 2 roses right here might grow together. I kind of like the idea of them going in their own garden path. So my last rose. Okay. And sometimes I have to move my stems to keep that spiral going. I'll kind of find my path. Good. Pull this up a little bit. So even with as little stems as we have right now, I have a pretty concrete way that they're all going, that they're all turning. The more stems you add, the more that happens. They're in the French style and in European styles in general, there are stems that you can use to accentuate that. Any hollow stemmed flowers, so tulips are a hollow stemmed flower, irises, bells of Ireland, those are all really thick stems that you can use to cheat this on the outside to really give it that pretty look. The bigger your stems are, the more you're going to see that really pretty spiral. So if you're thinking about how to make the bottom look pretty, those are maybe stems I would use. Any questions so far? Now it's kind of, this is what our arrangement's going to look like. Similarly, yours won't because it's your arrangement, but this is how you're going to do an arrangement like this. This is all I've got for this arrangement before we break up. So questions on this design in general, how we do things. All right. Yay, we get to do it together. I'm really, really excited. So you guys can take home something beautiful. So we're going to head to the back. We have stations. Marcus has set us up. He's my helper in the back with the glasses. He's going to also be walking around and helping as I go through this.
Thank you so much, Samantha. I want to remind everybody that we are doing a raffle for these beautiful arrangements. So if you want a chance to take some home, make sure you stop by and grab a raffle ticket or 5. You can also visit our bar over here where we've got delicious snacks and refreshments for your enjoyment.